Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out. It is my distinct pleasure once again to be joined by British boxing great Duke McKenzie MBE. Duke, good to see you looking well. How's your week been?
Pretty damn good, thanks, champ. Yeah, I would appreciate and yeah, but a great week, all in all.
Good, great to hear. And I did actually see a clip of your passionate call on Talk Sport alongside Dave Harris, calling for more from those in the industry to do more for the Ringside Charitable Trust. Those talks with Anthony Joshua in the future seem to be key to channel more support. Do you feel for a great cause, Duke?
Well, I mean, listen, the Ringside Charitable Trust are a organisation which are trying to raise monies for retired boxers. Okay, they're trying to raise money for a care home. They're trying to build a state-of-the-art care home for retired boxers that have fallen on hard times. Now, the fact that the big promoters aren't getting involved, don't want to get involved for whatever their reasons, doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not going to cost them anything, just a little bit of time and a little bit. We're not asking for money, we're asking for support by way of them endorsing what we're trying to do. So that's where we stand. And I'm sure with the right kind of input from the big promoters, i.e. Frank Warren and Ben Shalom and the other one, Eddie Hearn, if they all get on board and just give us a little bit of support, not asking for much, not asking for any of their personal time, just want to give us a little bit of support, give us our blessing, give us their support any way they can in terms of publicity, because that's what we really need to enhance the product and to enhance the brand and to get the care home up and running for retired boxers that have fallen on hard times, then it's a win-win situation.
Very well said, Duke. I appreciate that. And hopefully those talks go well as well. And the Ringside Charitable Trust does gain more traction and more support in the future. I wanted to also speak to you about the recent, and the dust is now settling, of course, on the Wembley Stadium fight between Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, resounding victory for Daniel Dubois. You were one of the very few people who can count themselves as having the foresight to see Dubois getting his hands raised at the final bell. What brought you to that conclusion before we get into the fight?
Well, I mean, listen, 17 years as a former professional boxer teaches you several things about the sport. I'm not trying to be flash big headed or anything like that. What I'm saying is, even with 17 years experience, I don't consider myself an expert. What I do, and when I looked at that fight initially, there's a scene in the Rocky film, like when Apollo Creed's going to fight Ivan Drago, right? And they put it to Apollo Creed and they say to him, his coach says to him, listen, Apollo, you're going to fight Ivan Drago. And they say to him, listen, baby, he's all wrong for you. Don't take the fight. He's just all wrong for you. That was my initial thought when I heard this fight being announced. Styles make fights. And as I said on TalkSport, that Joshua wasn't, he's not an athletic boxer per se. Looks good, body beautiful, muscles coming out of his ears, A, B, C, D. But in my eyes, that all slows you down. Now, if you look at Dubois, on the other hand, he's still a specimen. He's still a big guy, big, strong, powerful guy, but he's not as ripped as Anthony Joshua. He is a lot more flexible than Anthony Joshua, as he's proven. And I just thought to myself, if I was boxing one of these two guys, I'd much rather fight Joshua than I would Dubois, because Dubois, he's the right side of 30. He's going to bring it. You know that he's got an excellent jab. That's been well documented over his career. He's always had a good jab, even from the amateurs. I spoke to Richie Woodall several times over the years when he was training down at the England squad, training the England boxers. And he said to me that Daniel Dubois, as an amateur, had an excellent jab. And he'd witnessed firsthand just how good that jab was. That's how long I've known about his jab. Forget the rest of Daniel Dubois, because this guy is fast on the ascendancy and he's improving with every fight. But once they said this fight was on, all I kept saying to myself was, am I missing something? Several times I scratched my head. I even asked my wife. I said to my wife, so many people are going for Joshua and I just can't work it out. Maybe I should change my mind. Maybe I should be like everybody else and just follow the herd. But then I looked at it again and I watched Joshua in several of his fights. Then I watched Daniel Dubois in several of his fights. And I just couldn't make a case for Joshua winning the fight. He's got, in my eyes, I think Anthony Joshua's actually gone back. He's not going forward. He's going back in his career because he's not doing the things that he used to do when he first turned pro. Whether or not that was Rob McCracken's influence, which I'm pretty damn sure it was, the Daniel Dubois, sorry, the Anthony Joshua I see today, he's actually regressed. He's not going forward. He's gone back. Maybe you should give me a call. Maybe I could get him back on the right road. I don't know because I'm an out-and-out boxer. My style was to outbox guys and break them down systematically. I don't see Joshua doing that now. And like I say, I had to scratch my head and think to myself, what's going on? How can so many people be going for Joshua? I mean, it was the world and his brother were all going on Anthony Joshua. And then I thought to myself, I don't see it. And I didn't see it. And, I don't want to say I told you so, because that sounds like I'm bragging, but it was a bad loss. It was a bad loss. I don't know if he can recover from this because it was terrible. I mean, the guy took an absolute hiding. And boy, I mean, listen, it looks clearly to me now Dubois dealt with AJ, that his punch resistance is clearly gone. And I know it's a little bit harsh, but it looked to me like the first right hand that Dubois hit him with was an almighty right hand and would probably have knocked out anybody. Yeah. But the shots that he hit him with after that, they were only glancing blows. You watch it again and you'll see. They weren't full flush. They weren't powerhouse shots like the first one. They were glancing shots. And AJ was all over the place. And I don't know what they've been teaching in training camp, but clearly it hasn't worked. And clearly he needs to go back to basics. I mean, I stated also that when AJ throws these combinations, once he trades off, he always drops his hands. And that this has been a fundamental bad habit of his from day one, since he first turned pro. He's never been able to hold his shape. Dubois, on the other hand, is very good at that. And I'm sure you've watched the fight several times, and you notice Dubois has always got his hands up. He's pretty much got his chin tucked down. And even when he unloads, he gets his hands back up again. And I just, like I say, I looked at everything and I just judged it all up and I weighed it all up. And that's how I came to my conclusion.
Appreciate that response there. As the fight unfolded, what of the work from the corner and then the execution of the instructions, I guess, from the corner from AJ to arrest the tide? There was that moment before the fifth, and look, of course, it ended so abruptly with the right hand that Dubois landed, but it did seem to be the moment where Joshua did have a bit of success, and I guess he maybe was he was over exuberant in trying to get more success in that fifth and final round.
Well, again, when you look at that, the round that Joshua caught Dubois in, Dubois took AJ's best shot. AJ couldn't take Dubois' best shot. A lot was made of how many right hands Dubois had taken against Hrgovic in his last fight. And I just kept telling myself, well, if he can take Hrgovic's power, Joshua's not too far behind that, or he's ahead of that in terms of raw power. We all know how hard he hits. But I thought if he could take his, then he could definitely take Anthony Joshua's power, which he did. Because when Joshua caught him, he was hurt. Of course he was. But he stayed on his feet. And even when he was backed up, he was compos mentis. He had all his faculties about him. And all he kept saying to himself, or what he must have said to himself was, I'm going to walk him onto the right hand again, which he did. If you look at the shot that he caught Anthony Joshua with, the final knockdown wasn't a great shot. It wasn't a great shot at all. It landed flush. It was nowhere near as good as the first one that hurt Anthony Joshua. So AJ's got some terrible habits. Needs to get himself a proper old school coach, in my opinion, who's going to school him if he's going to have any chance of continuing in the sport of boxing. But I you know what, I kind of fear for the guy more than want him to actually continue in the sport, because I think heavyweight boxing is not like any other division. You're one punch from victory, one punch from disaster. And the next shot that he could potentially take, it might not come out very good for him. Listen, I like the guy. I'd love to see him regain the heavyweight championship of the world for a third time, but only the good and the great can win titles, not playing the on trumpet at 3 different times or whatever, like Muhammad Ali done it, obviously. Joshua had the chance to do it, but he failed miserably. It was such a poor performance from him. And I kind of think to myself, like I say, he looked to me like he's going back. He's not going forward. I mean, again, you can say it was bad advice, which it clearly was. Roll the dice, I think, over the corner saying, take a chance. When, he just looked like he needed a round or two to clear his head, regroup, and then maybe start a different assault in a different way. But that didn't happen for him. So, listen, the rest is history. The world title attempt's gone. Where he goes from here, I don't know. There are no more soft options for him now. His build up to this fight was pretty poor. The 3 fights that he had, the 2 or 3 fights that he had were against poor opposition. They talked about, how they was going to how he had been rebuilt and he's back to the old AJ. This version was worse than the old AJ. This version of Anthony Joshua, I don't think anybody likes because it hasn't proved to be, it hasn't proven to be fruitful. It's brought him absolutely nothing except misery. And for him to say, okay, we rise together, we fall together, and all of that false bravado, because that's what it is right now. That's, talk's cheap. Talk's cheap. That's not going to get him anywhere. He's a very, very wealthy man. And if I was Anthony Joshua right now, I would have to seriously question just how bad I want the sport. How badly do I need? Not how badly do I want the sport, because obviously he would say to you as a sportsman, I'll fight to the death. We've all heard it before. And we've all said it before. Yeah, we fight to death. Big deal. Get on with it. What I'm really trying to say is he needs to look at his bank balance and say to himself, you know what? I've actually done pretty damn good. I'm a multi-gazillionaire. I've made a lot of money from the sport of boxing. I'm a 2-time world champion. I can still be an influence on all these young kids that I brought through to boxing, all these young kids that I've educated. Anthony Joshua can open up different Anthony Joshua boxing academies up and down the country, mentor kids, be a much more positive role model, right? Because all these young kids now are all watching him, see what his next move's going to be. All these young kids that he's mentored to have all just seen him getting blown away in the water. So, what he needs to do is to say to these young kids, I've had a great career, I made a lot of money, and now I can give them all of that experience that I once had and pass it on, rather than go out there again and get blown out of the water again, because that's what I fear could happen to him quite easily. Could you imagine? Boxing's a very, very selfish and very unforgiving business, as I'm sure you're well aware. But could you imagine someone like that young kid that's coming up now, that Joe Atomo?
Moses.
Yeah, sorry, what's his name?
Moses Italma.
Moses Atomo. Moses what, sorry?
Italma.
Right. Could you imagine him against AJ right now? What he would do to AJ right now, given the fact that AJ, his confidence is shot to pieces, right? And he's not holding a shot. So what would that kid do to him right now? Let's just say that this kid was in a position where he could fight AJ right now. Would you put him anywhere near AJ?
No.
Sorry. No. I certainly wouldn't. Like I say, boxing's a very savage business. It's very unforgiving. And I don't know what the way back for this kid. I don't know. I can't see it.
Let's switch the perspective a little bit and talk about Dubois, but more specifically, actually, Don Charles and the work that he's done in the corner and giving Daniel the confidence to, rise above some claims of his heart and his determination and guiding him to that moment at Wembley night. What of the work of Don Charles, and do you feel that he'll get the credit from the industry off of the back of this victory?
Well, surely he needs to get the credit from the industry, doesn't he? Listen, I've listened to Don Charles quite a lot in the build-up to this fight, this fight with Anthony Joshua, and the one overriding thing that he kept saying was, "I'm an old school coach. I do things the old school way." And when you listen to some of the things that he said to Dubois, phrases like "we're not going to be denied," single mindset, seek and destroy. These are all the things that you hear from the likes of Marvin Hagler, the legend that was Marvin Hagler, God rest his soul. These are the sort of things, that was the Hagler mindset that he gave Dubois, and it proved dividends. It doesn't work on everybody, you understand, but the fact remains is he knew his charge. He knew what Dubois was capable of, and he knew all that Dubois needed was to get his confidence in the right place. He's got the physical attributes, boxes well, fit kid, don't have time to train, trains like a dog, does everything that he's supposed to do. So all he said to himself was, right, I've got to get this kid's mind right. And once I get into the cockpit of this mind, all I've got to do from there is just steer this kid to a victory. And that's all they spoke about. It wasn't like, it's going to be a tough fight and, we can't survive and what we're going to do and ABCD. Don Charles said he had prepared Daniel Dubois for every eventuality, every possible thing that could happen in the fight. They was prepared for it. So that all that tells me is that both physically and mentally, that kid brought his A game. And when you see him walking out at Wembley Way, he was so full of confidence. He must have been bouncing off the walls in the changing room. I know that feeling. I've been there and I know what that feeling is. And when I see him coming out, I thought to myself, boy, AJ's in trouble. I didn't have no hesitation in thinking to myself, I'd actually made the right choice in picking Daniel Dubois to be AJ. I mean, listen, I feel sorry for AJ the same as everybody else. But I dare say AJ's woke up in his lovely mansion and he's got a nice big fat check and he's looked at his bank balance and said to himself, you know what, it was worth it.
What of Daniel now and the opportunities that he should be afforded? There's a big, well, not quite an undisputed rematch, but a unified title rematch between Usyk and Fury happening soon. Do you feel that Daniel's well placed to fight the winner of that?
I'd be surprised if that fight happens.
Hmm.
I'd be very surprised if Tyson Fury fights Alexander Usyk. I think at some point he'll pull out, bad shoulder, had a fall, something will happen. He could very well pull out of that fight. Surely the fight for him has got to be against Dubois. Now, because then, should he be successful and beat Dubois, that sets up a nice fight with AJ and Tyson Fury, which and I know. Let's get this one right. That is the biggest fight in world boxing, bar none. It's the biggest fight, still the biggest fight. You want to see it, I want to see it because they're still both huge names. I know that Dubois obviously has got other ideas, but I don't think Tyson Fury is going to fight Alexander Usyk. I would rather I see him either retiring before the Usyk fight or potentially pulling out of the Usyk fight. Can't see him fighting Usyk again. The result's going to be the same.
How do you feel?
In actual fact, I think probably Usyk will probably do a better job second time around than he did the first time around.
I should play with that a little bit. How do you feel a Fury versus Dubois fight would go?
Fury against Daniel Dubois.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Dubois smash him to pieces. You know what? Daniel Dubois should be made president of the Who Needs Him Club right now. You don't need a young 27, 28-year-old monster like Dubois chasing you down, handing you down. And, he's a big guy, hits hard, well-educated, well-schooled, on top of his game right now. There aren't enough chinks in his armor right now to suggest that he's going anyway except up. And, AJ's got chinks in his armor, Fury's got chinks in his armor, and these chinks have come late in their careers. What's happened with Dubois is he had one or two falls, which he slipped and fell. Now he's got up again, dusted himself off, and gone, right, bang, I'm going forward. And the only way for Daniel Dubois to slip up rounds if he doesn't live the life. But and I know he lives a clean life. He's a clean liver. You're not going to hear him going out clubbing, parties, girls, and all the rest of it, all the bad things that boxers or people get up to. That's just not in his makeup. He's a God-fearing man. He's got good people around him. Daniel Dubois is going to take some holding, mate. I tell you, he's going to take someone pretty damn special, like an Usyk, to tame him again.
Duke, we'll leave that there. It's been a great conversation. I knew it would be, so thank you for giving me some of your time. Looking forward to our next conversation in the near future. But thanks again and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, champ. I appreciate you inviting me on. God bless. Have a great day.